Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. Let's talk about science. Let's talk about evolution. I have a study here, a new study, which says only 6% of scientists identify themselves as Republicans. 100% of Republicans have no idea why this is true. This is one of these things we've been talking about for a while, which is, why do so few scientists identify as Republicans? Is it that if you believe in science, by definition, you are already not a Republican and therefore you are interested in going into those fields? Or is it that people going into science are basically divided in the same way that the general population is in terms of political leanings, and once they become science professionals, whatever is colloquially referred to as a scientist, they stop being Republicans? I think it's probably a combination of both.
Definitely a combination, yeah.
We have a situation where 55% of scientists identify as Democrats, 6% as Republicans, and the rest either non-political or independent of some kind. And I think it has to do really with, it's not about politics. I really don't believe that this is about politics. I believe there is one party that accepts scientific findings when there is a consensus on everything from global warming to evolutionary theory to how do you and how don't you prevent pregnancy. And the reality is life is not completely black and white. It is not totally binary in the sense that you are either have a worldview that clearly is Democratic or Republican, although on some issues it certainly is. But in this context, in the context of science, we do have a very binary situation. Democratic politicians tend to be on the side of believing that tax cuts on the rich do not actually help the economy, that climate change exists and it very well may be connected to the activity of human beings on this planet, that rape does cause pregnancy, it doesn't just get shut down in some way, right? And the Republican Party has opposite beliefs. It seems very binary to me, where these things are not open to opinion. I guess, though, if you were to ask Republicans about this, they would say all of those things have dissenting views. Yeah, but they're the extreme minority, right? I mean, that's how I would counter.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, does intelligence factor into this?
We've talked about that. I mean, Natan, how would you put in all of these factors together?
Well, since we're not talking about the general population, we're just talking about scientists,
right.
And I assume that we're talking about like hard scientists, like biologists and chemists, and not all academics, right?
We're talking about climatologists, we're talking about archaeologists. I mean, I think it's a pretty broad scope.
I think that you could easily find within those groups a lot of people who believe in low taxes and fiscal conservatism, and even potentially on some social issues they have pretty conservative views, but they just perceive correctly, I think, that the Republican Party is against the scientific consensus because they want to appeal to a very anti-intellectual base of voters that increasingly are almost all of their voters.
And the right wing would do what, Lewis? They would basically attack the beliefs as partisan, right? I mean, is that the defense?
That's usually it, yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't really, how far does that really go, right? I mean, how far will people really believe that a difference of opinion on a 99-to-1 basis on climate change is simply the 99% is totally partisan? I don't know.
People who think it's all part of some giant global scheme to do what? I don't know, but it's a scheme.
Maybe so.
Yeah.